Today I have written to Prime Minister Scott Morrison requesting a bipartisan approach to establish a National Anti-Corruption Commission. I am absolutely convinced that the people of Australia want to see the National Parliament and the Commonwealth accountable to a National Integrity Commission. Labor announced this proposal in January. We then wrote to the then Liberal Prime Minister, Mr Turnbull, putting forward this idea and seeking his support. Unfortunately, there was no real response from the coalition except dismissal. Subsequently, in September, when Mr Morrison became the current Liberal Prime Minister, I again said that Australia wants a National Integrity Commission. Today, we write to the Prime Minister again. I offer a process where the Attorney General and the Shadow Attorney General would lead the consultation to develop the proper framework for an anti-corruption commission. Australians want to have their trust restored in Parliament and the matters of the Commonwealth. A National Anti-Integrity Commission, I believe, is a down payment to ensure that the Australian people can have confidence, a renewed confidence in their political process. The idea of a National Anti-Corruption Commission is not a Liberal idea or a crossbench idea or a Labor idea. The people of Australia simply want to have the protection of a National Integrity Commission. I believe that it is long past time for this change to be enacted. I make it clear that if we are elected at the next election, we will respect the wishes of the Australian people and we will establish a National Anti-Corruption Commission. But it doesn't have to wait for a federal election for us to move forward on this important piece of legislation. I believe that we're capable of working on it right now. Mr Morrison, to the best of my knowledge, has never publicly declared his support for a National Anti-Corruption Commission. After 3 months, time's up, Mr Morrison. You should now declare your support for this body. I want to make it clear that when Parliament resumes at the end of November, we will be seeking the support of the crossbench to help develop a National Anti-Corruption Commission. We will work with the coalition government, we will work with the Liberals, but we won't wait for them. The people of Australia deserve nothing less. I'd now like to invite my colleague, the Shadow Attorney General, Mark Dreyfus, to talk further about Labor's proposals for a National Anti-Corruption Commission.
Thanks, Bill. The government is all over the place on this question of a National Integrity Commission. It's another example of the chaos and confusion that's engulfing this government. Just this morning, a senior minister, Mr Pyne, ruled out the possibility of a National Anti-Corruption Commission, and by contrast, the Attorney General has said in the past, that's Christian Porter, he said he's open to the idea. And thanks to the ABC, we learned last week that Mr Porter and the former Prime Minister, Mr Turnbull, had been working on a model for a National Anti-Corruption Commission for some months. So, as Bill's just said, the time is up for Scott Morrison to say what his position is to end this chaos and confusion. Does he have to be dragged kicking and screaming as he was to the Banking Commission, which he voted against 26 times, only to finally relent and establish a commission as he should have all along? Does he have to be dragged kicking and screaming to establish a National Anti-Corruption Commission, or will he come to his senses? As Bill has said, the time's up.
Again, I just reiterate, this is the final week of hearings for the Banking Royal Commission. Mr Morrison, the current Liberal Prime Minister, voted 26 times to stop the Banking Royal Commission. On this issue of a National Anti-Corruption Commission, I asked Mr Morrison to drop his trademark stubbornness and work with all sides of politics. The Australian people want us to do it. And if the government's not prepared to do this when Parliament resumes next week, well, Labor will seek to work with a crossbench to develop a National Anti-Corruption Commission. And of course, I believe, and I understand that there are government backbenchers who would support a National Anti-Corruption Commission, and I think that the Parliament should express the will of the Australian people on this matter as soon as possible. Happy to take any questions.
Have you spoken to